Hello, and welcome to another episode of Math with Dr. War. Today we're going to be looking at area and population density. Now, population density is a high emphasis problem on the Tasc math test. So you will definitely see questions on population density. Before you can calculate population density, you have to be able to calculate area, because sometimes they don't give you the area and you must calculate it. Now, when we talk about the area, we actually mean the size of a surface. And you must remember that area is measured in square dimensions. And the reason that it's called square miles or square inches is because we imagine area as how many squares would cover an area. Now, most of the time when you have population density, the area that you're going to be covering would either be a rectangle or a square. And to find the area of a rectangle or a square, I use the same formula, which is length times width. In the first two questions here, I have to find the area. And because I have to find the area, always remember area is length times width. My length is 6, my width is 2, and when I multiply 6 times 2, my answer is 12. Your answer is 12 square miles. So sometimes we write it like this, or sometimes we just write 12 and then we write the word miles and we put a little 2 at the top. Both answers are correct. Now here I have a square. Again, I use the same formula, length times width. 5 times 5, which is 25. So my answer is 25 square inches. Another way we can write that is 25, and then I can write inches and a little 2 at the top. So always remember that area is just the size of the surface. It is measured in square dimensions, and the reason for that is we always think about how many squares would cover the surface that we are measuring. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of why we're here. Population density. Population density tells us how many people or a population that can live in an area. So that's all it is for population density. So here, to calculate population density, the formula is mass divided by area. Now always remember the mass will be your population, and we all know area is just the size of the surface. They said the population is 132 squirrels. Notice they didn't give us the area, but notice it's a rectangle. So our area, which is length times width, is going to be 4 times 3, which is 12 square miles. So here my area is 12 and it's square miles because our dimension is miles. And now they want us to calculate the density. Remember, density is just mass divided by your area. My mass, which is the population, is 132 divided by the area, which is 12. And I know 132 divided by 12 will be 11. So your answer is 11 squirrels per square miles. Now, the dimensions again are very important. Remember, this is 132. That is your squirrels. The 12 is your area. And remember, we calculate the area as square miles. So notice how they wrote their dimensions. When we divide, we got 11, and there it was squirrels. And remember, the slash is like we're dividing square miles. Because these two variables are different, they can't actually divide each other. So this is like algebra. So we're just going to write it as squirrels slash square miles. This means squirrels per square miles. What does this mean? Is basically, if you go to this area, suppose it's in a park, you can find, so all this means is that 11 squirrels can live in each square miles if distributed evenly. Here my population is 350 people. The area is 14 square miles and we want the density. Remember, density is mass over area. My mass is 350 people divided by 14, which is my area. If you use your calculator, 350 divided by 14, enter, I got 25. So my answer is 25. So this would be 25. And remember, this is your people and this is your square miles. So your answer is 25 people slash, and now you're just going to write here square miles. I have a population of 100 rabbits and the area is 40 square miles. So my density, which they want, remember density is mass over area. Notice I always write my formula. My mass is 100, that's the population of rabbits. The area they're living in is 40 square miles. Okay, let's get our calculator. 100 divided by 40, I get 2.5. So my answer is 2.5. So here, that's 2.5. Here would be rabbits. And per square miles. Because remember, this was your rabbits and the 40 was your square miles. So always remember, population is just rabbits, area is square miles, and density is measured in rabbits per square miles. So if someone asks you what this meant, you would say, oh, you can find 2.5 rabbits living in each square mile if they're distributed evenly. Now you must remember that population density have three variables: population, area, and density. And not all the time will they want you to calculate density. They can ask you to calculate the area or they can ask you to calculate the population. And that's why I have these two problems right here. So they said the population is 2,000 people. Notice the area is blank, so we have to find it per square miles. And the density, 200 people per square mile. So I always start with my formula. Density equals mass over area. Okay, let's see what we have. So I have the population, which is the mass. So I have 2,000 people here. The area is blank, so I don't know my area, so I'm going to leave that as A. And I know the density is 200. That's over here. And I have to find the area. So notice, in order to find A, students find this very difficult. So I says, okay, let's make everything a fraction. So this is a fraction and this is a fraction. Now to make it easier on yourself, to solve for A, we would cross multiply. So 200 times A is 200A. And 1 times 2,000 is 2,000. And now I've made it into a one step. And to solve for A, I would divide both sides by 200. And that cancels, leaving me with A, the area. And then I'm going to divide this. I'm not going to use the calculator. This is very simple. This 0 cancels this 0. This one cancels this. And 20 divided by 2 is 10. So your area is 10 square miles. So here, this would be 10. Again, if you wanted to check this, take your population, which is 2,000, divide it by the area, and notice you will get 200. Alright, let's look at this one. Notice population is blank. We don't know the population. We know the area is 7 square miles, and we know the density. So again, start with your formula. Density equals mass over area. Alright, let's fill in what we have. We have the density. It is 5,000. Do we have the mass? No, we don't. So I'm going to leave that as M. We do have the area, that is 7. So we have to find the mass. And I tell my students, remember from one step, and they'll say, yeah, we remember. I says, when it looks like this, guess what we do? And they all says, yep, we multiply. So when you multiply, your mass equals to 5,000 times 7, and that would be 35,000. So the population here would be 35,000 people. And again, we can check it. Take the mass, divide it by the area, and you will surely get 5,000 people per square mile. So I always tell students, take a look at this one. If it looks like this, where you have the 500 here and the 7 in the denominator, you'll multiply. If it looks like you have both numbers in the numerator and your missing variable at the bottom, this is when you would divide to get your answer. Well, this one, notice how this looks, you multiply to get your answer. And I think that kind of helps students get their answer pretty quickly. So when you divide here, you're dividing the 2,000 by the 200. Okay, because notice what happened over here. The 2,000 was divided by the 200. So it's like these two switched positions. I hope that was helpful. Okay, let's look at some problems that you will see on your Tasc test. All right, the first question states there are about 20 million people in New York State with a total land area about 47,000 square miles. What is the population density of New York State? Now we know that density is mass divided by your area. Now here, your mass is the people. Notice they wrote it as 20 million. Now you need to change that 20 million into an actual number. So 20 million, I tell students to do this. So you want 20 million, that is 20 times a million, which is a million. A million is a 1 with 6 zeros. And this is going to be coming very handy soon. So 20 times 1 million is going to be 20 million. So always remember 20 million means 20 times 1 million, which is 1 with 6 zeros. And then when you multiply it, you have your 20, and I'm just adding on 6 zeros at the end. So this would be 20 with my 6 zeros for the 20 million. And now I'm going to divide it by the area. And you know your area says area of about 47,000 square miles. Even if they didn't say the word area, because of the units, square miles, that's your area. So that's 47,000. This would be on the calculator. Students ask me, will this be on the non-calculator? And I says, not really. You don't have the time for this. So let's get our calculator. So I'm taking 20 million. So that's 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I was going pretty quickly. Divided by the 47,000. Okay, and enter. And notice our answer is 425.5. And they rounded their answer, so that 5 made that a 6. Or you can say the closest answer to 425 is this. So my answer is B, because we got 425.5. And this 5 made our whole number increase by 1 because of rounding. So notice that sometimes in the word problems, they actually don't write out the numeral. Especially with the millions, they like to write 20 million. You have to write that as a numeral. I gave a question like this to my students, and a lot of them thought that they can get their answers simply by looking. And I thought that was very incorrect. And if they did it, you may do it as well. So it says here, the following chart shows population and area of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Here's your borough, the population of 2017, and the area in square miles. And we have all the 5 boroughs: the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and Staten Island. Don't forget Staten Island. And it says, based on the chart, which answer choice lists the boroughs from greatest to least population density? So my students start by looking They went and looked and saw that because Brooklyn had the most people, then that was first. And I says, no, you can't do that. You have to actually calculate. So we know that population density is mass over area. Now, this type of question would be on the calculator section because they want us to list the boroughs from greatest to least population density. So I told my students, you know that density is mass divided by area. You're going to take out your calculator. Let's clear. And we're going to calculate each of them. So let's start with the Bronx. We're going to enter 1,471,160. Let me make sure I get that in. Is it correct? Yes. And we're now going to divide that by 42. And notice they gave us my answer of 35,027.6, but I'm going to round that to the nearest whole number. So that's going to be 35,028. So 35,028. So I'm going to write it right here. Okay, let's try Brooklyn. So Brooklyn, we have 2,648,771. And I'm going to divide that by the square miles of 71. And I have a population density of 37,306.6. So that's 37,307. All right, let's try Manhattan. Now notice I'm not clearing my calculator screen. Manhattan is 1,664,727. And I'm going to divide that by 23, which is the area. All right, I have a value of 72,379. So 72,379. Yep. Okay, let's go to Queens. 2,358,582. And we're going to divide that by 109. Queens is pretty big. All right, notice that we get 21,638. 21,638. Don't mind me repeating myself. It's just for me to write this stuff because the calculator goes away. And the last one, Staten Island, which is very small, 479,458. I would live in Staten Island, but that ferry, I don't think I can take that every day. No offense if you live in Staten Island. Okay, divide by 59. And I hit enter. Notice I have 8,126. 8,126. Okay, so I have my density. All of this is my density, population density. They want us to list it from greatest to least. Okay, the greatest is Manhattan with 72,379 people for every square mile. So Manhattan, so you know your answer is not B or C. All right, so we have two Manhattans leading. Okay, who would be next? So Manhattan is number one. Next is these two, but who's bigger? Is it the Bronx or is it Brooklyn? Now Brooklyn is 37,000, so next it would be Brooklyn. So your answer is A, right there. And you're finished. Notice that there were two answer choices that had Manhattan. We had to differentiate who was bigger between Brooklyn and Queens. Brooklyn wins. I think Brooklyn is soon going to overtake Manhattan because everybody's moving to Brooklyn nowadays. Brooklyn is the new Manhattan, folks. So, okay, please don't come to Brooklyn. We're full already. Don't mind me, folks. I'm just joking. Good luck in your Tasc examination.